Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smoko podcast. My name is Alexis Armstrong, your host. Nice to meet you. The Smoko podcast is the place to celebrate and highlight women, trans women, and non binary folk working within STEM and trades occupation. So please tune in, join us. We are on Smoko. And today we are extremely lucky to be joined by the lovely Andrea Durdle, who is an instructor at plumbing and pipe trades at the School of Trades and Technology at Camosun. She was an alumni of the program, and now she kind of returned full circle as an instructor. She's a Red Seal plumber. She is also an advocate for women in trades, and she is part of a pilot program at Camosun, which really focused on the retention of women in Red Seal trades. She's a proud UA member of Local 324 and the co-chair of their women's committee, and she is also on the advisory board for the Construction Center of Excellence in Washington State. So she has done absolutely everything for women in trades, and it's a complete honor to have you on the show today, Andrea. Thank you so much for coming on Smoko.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. Honestly, it was such a joy researching you and kind of reading interviews and looking up your background. And one of the articles that I read, it mentioned that when you first discovered pipe trades, you immediately knew that it was going to be like this right fit and it was something that you could see yourself doing long term. I was wondering if you could speak to kind of that moment and also to that initial decision of attending the Plumbing and Pipe Trades Foundation program at Camosun, because I know that it kind of took a little bit to get there, but how that decision to enter that program, how it changed your life.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a little background, I guess, first, and that'll kind of help set the
Yeah.
tone for this. So, I was actually fresh out of high school and went through the culinary program
Mm.
at Malaspina University College, which is now VIU up in Nanaimo. And I worked in the culinary industry for almost 7 years. And, culinary is also considered a skilled trade.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a great experience working in culinary, but at the time, the wages were very low. Employees didn't get that much respect. There was that same kind of toxic culture in the
Mm-hmm.
culinary industry that we face in the skilled trades industry. And I was looking for a shift to make a little bit more money and kind of get away from the culture of working
Mm-hmm.
in the restaurant industry. And I started looking at course catalogs to make a sideways move into a different trade. And I literally started going through the descriptions of the courses and going, yeah, this doesn't sound like me. Like I did a lot of word shop work with my dad growing up,
Yeah.
and no, carpentry, maybe not so much. Electrical, don't like the idea of being shocked.
Fair.
And I came across plumbing and pipe trades program, and what was kind of unique about that program, the foundation program they offered at the time, was that the plumbing and pipe trades program covered more than one trade. So it
Mm.
covers plumber, it covers sprinkler fitter, gas fitter, and steam fitter, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure thing. I mean, you
Mm.
finish the program and you pick one of those four trades, so it gives you a little bit more diversity and a little bit more to choose from. So I put in an application for that program. There was a pretty big wait list to get in, and I was offered a last minute seat like 4 weeks after I put in my application to start in January. And we just had this big snowstorm and had to, shift gears and move down to Victoria from Nanaimo.
Yeah.
But like the first day of class, like it just really sunk in and resonated that like looking at the shop, looking at the tools,
Mm-hmm.
getting my hands on stuff and learning that it's more than just about, doing physical work with the tools, but there's so much problem solving and logic that
Mm-hmm.
goes into everything you do as a skilled tradesperson. The ability to use both my brains
Mm-hmm.
and my hands to do something productive every day was super duper appealing. And just the versatility of the trade itself. Like it's such a broad scope of things to do. Plumbers aren't just people who come to your house and unplug your toilet. We do so much
Yeah.
more. And I mean, that's one of the things that I've tried to pass on to folks who might be considering entering the trade is kind of opening their eyes to the different opportunities. You can be a plumber and never touch poop. You can be doing new construction and custom homes.
It's good to
You
know,
can
though.
you can do really cool stuff
Yeah.
like install airlines and work in
Mhm.
hospitals installing medical gas and oxygen. So there's a real cool diversity to our trade that I think most people are maybe not aware of. It's a
Mhm.
secret.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that you brought up that you don't have to touch poop because it's so topical though. Because I think that is like
Mhm.
honestly, it is a secret. Like pipe trades, I think it's so broad and like even the name itself, you're like, what is pipe trades? It's literally everything. It's gas fitting, it's HVAC, it's plumbing. There is so
Mhm.
many different kind of make your own adventure, and I love that that was what she felt when you entered that program and kind of having this aha moment of being like, okay, I get to do both mental work and also physical work. And it's something that's very fulfilling. I think one thing with skilled trades, I know when I talked to my sister, she had an instant aha moment with welding because she was like, it all of a sudden was technical. You had to use your brain, you had to like use your body, but it was also so fulfilling that you got to see progress right away and you got to see something complete. Like you got to make something and by the end of the day you could walk away and be like, "Yep, I made that." Or like I created that and just that fulfilling aspect of the trades. That's amazing you had that moment.
It is kind of really cool and rewarding too, like your sister said, to drive by a building and be like, I did that building, or to go to somebody's house and fix something and they're like, wow, you solved this problem I've had for so long. That's so amazing.
Mhm.
So there is that like instant gratification and also that delayed long term gratification of like seeing something cool that you've worked on that's standing the test of time.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And Andrea, I wanted to talk about one thing from your story because I just think it's so beautiful that you had a little bit of a different pathway, which I think is very common with skilled trades or even sciences. It takes you a little bit to even find out that these careers exist. But you entered this program, you graduated, you became a red seal plumber and Class B gas ticket. And then you came back to Camosun. And I think that this full circle moment is just a very, very beautiful thing of going from alumni to teacher. How was that transition and like how was that process of becoming a instructor? Was it something that was really normal for you? Was it something that instantly felt like the right fit or was it something that you had to learn and still kind of feel unreal?
So yeah, it was a really neat opportunity for me. When I saw the posting, it was for taking a job working with the Women in Trades program and
Mm,
then leading into position teaching in the plumbing and pipe trades program, which obviously I'm an alumni of.
mm,
And I think at the time, the chair of the program who hired me on to do that position, he was one of my teachers in level 2 and level 4 plumbing. And something I'd said to him years and years in the past was that like I could always see myself teaching because
mm.
I was one of those students who sat in class and peer tutored people in the
Yeah.
classroom and really just wanted to help people understand concepts that I already understood. So for me, that full circle moment was really cool, not only to be hired by someone who taught me and I respected so much, but also to then come to the college and work with all my other instructors that I'd had over the course of my career and some peers that I went to school with as well.
Mm,
And what was really neat about the transition in our department, everyone was really, really supportive of me, coming on, and the onboarding was wonderful. Everyone was super helpful, which was amazing for me. It let me kind of, grasp things and learn a lot quicker and give my students a better experience overall. Because, when you come in as a new teacher, that can definitely present its challenges. You can be a little bit nervous at times.
yeah.
You don't necessarily know everything, and I think that's also okay. I did get my instructor's diploma. I actually crossed the
Oh,
stage this summer at the
congratulations.
UA instructor training program. So I successfully now have my adult education instructor's diploma, which is amazing. It was really cool to complete that. And yeah, it was a great accomplishment. But yeah, I just think that sometimes it does feel kind of surreal to be in this position where, I'm back where I took my
Mhm,
education. I'm teaching in the same classrooms that I learned in, and I have the opportunity to impact students in the same positive way that my instructors do. And I think, for me, I want to model my teaching after being someone who,
mhm.
can inspire students to reach their full potential. And I think, one of the coolest bits of feedback I got when I first started teaching, which has really stuck with me the entire time I've been at the college to this day, was I taught my first plumbing foundations class. I had 12 students, six of them were women, six
Oh,
of them were men,
amazing.
which is
Yeah,
unbelievable,
that's
super, super
crazy.
cool.
50-50.
And one of the female students came up to me in probably the third or fourth week of classes. And she was like, I was so nervous coming into this program, applying for this program. I did it on a whim. I knew I wanted to work with my hands.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what to expect when I got here. Wasn't sure who my teacher would be. Wasn't sure if I was cut out for this or if I'd make it, but I wanted to give it a try. And then I saw you, my
And I
instructor, up
knew.
at the front of the
Yeah.
classroom, and just the fact that you're here teaching in this program and that you got to this point totally told me that I could do this because there you are. I can see myself in you.
Mm,
And, I think that's a really cool thing. Knowing that, like, the first female instructor in our department, and the female students can see themselves in me in the classroom, and that gives them hope that they can definitely achieve the same things as I can, and I truly believe that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That makes an even a beautiful story even more beautiful, and I love that story because it's so true. Like, I firmly believe in you can't be it if you can't see it. Like, it is such a big, powerful thing to see somebody that looks like you up kind of in your future where you want to go. So, that's so beautiful that you can be that for your students. And it's so cool that you get to work with your instructors that taught you and to have that positive impact on other people's lives that you had on yours. In terms of subject matter, do you have anything that you love to teach or like a favorite aspect of teaching? Maybe it's like an idea or it could be like seeing them make a connection, like this aha connection about plumbing or pipe trades. Anything there that's like a favorite every year that you're like, today's the day they're going to learn about this or they're going to learn about that?
I really thoroughly enjoy teaching like troubleshooting gas appliances and stuff. I teach our gas fitting program at Camosun, and I really love the problem solving aspect
Mm,
and going through that process of like how you get from the beginning of a problem to the end of a problem. Really is kind of fun for me
mhm.
because it's like you're solving a mystery, and it's really cool when the students are like, "Oh, there's a process to this that we can follow every time, and
Cool.
like we can come to the answer with like pretty good certainty that this is what's wrong with someone's heating appliance." So I really, really love teaching that aspect of things. When we have to investigate things and we get to be tactile and hands on and practice that, that's really fun for me. I also love teaching math because I'm a bit of a math nerd, and I think that being passionate about like teaching certain things is kind of fun. Like I like
Mhm.
to try and make it as fun as math can possibly be. And yeah, like you said, in terms of like a concept or something in the classroom, is like when I have students who struggle with certain concepts, and I mean, we all struggle with certain
Mhm.
concepts, being able to maybe shift gears and explain it to them in a way that gives them that absolute aha moment where they're like, oh my God, I get this now.
Yeah.
This makes total sense just because you explained it in a slightly different way. So having those moments with students and then seeing those students succeed, like to achieve their goals, whether it be passing a level of apprenticeship class or whether it be passing their Red Seal exam in their fourth level, just watching them kind of go through the process and succeed is really cool too. You kind of get to be a part of their educational journey,
Mhm.
and you get to see them go from being a first year apprentice where they're, a little bit nervous and a little bit green, to getting to that level
Uh-huh.
of confidence as a fourth year, and that's really cool as well.
Ah, that's amazing. That's so cool to see them kind of grow. And I love that you also give that example of like kind of teaching them a stepwise process of problem solving, because I also think that that's kind of in the same theme of teaching them how to be independent and problem solve and kind of get them through their problems like throughout their degree, right? Like
Hmm.
that's something that kind of sets them up for their future. And I also love, thank you for bringing up the fact that the trades is so science based. And in my mind, they are like a part of science. Trades is part of science. But I think a lot of people maybe miss that like these trades are very, very math focused, or they're very physics focused, or they're very
Hmm.
engineering focused. They're very similar to a STEM field. So thank you for calling that out and calling out the math that comes into the pipe trades. Speaking about their kind of progression of your students of going from like a student to an apprentice and then to master to red seal, could you maybe talk about moving from one to the other in the process of that? Because I know training in trades is something that you're really passionate about. And maybe what does that look like, or what do you think in terms of training along their journey?
Yeah, so like I'll speak to it a little bit from the perspective of both like the institution pathway and my own pathway.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways to enter the skilled trades. The way I took was by entering a foundation program, which is basically a program for somebody who's maybe never had any construction based trades experience before. So we offer a 30-week program at the college. You come in with basically no prior experience in the trade that you're entering, and you get to learn everything from how to cut wood with a saw saw to how to properly use a hammer to how to appropriately use safety equipment, all the way up to like how to put drainage piping in and do some of those more advanced skills. The beauty of it being spaced out over a 30-week program is that you get to master those skills a little bit more by the time you get to the end of the program. When you finish that program, you go out and seek work and you find an employer and you become an indentured apprentice. Once you become an indentured apprentice, you work for about a year's time and then you come back to school for your second year of apprenticeship, and you do 8 weeks of schooling in the classroom. You're able to access some supports through EI. They actually pay apprentices to go to school, so you get laid off from your employer, you get paid while you go to school, and then you typically return to that same employer after you're finished school and you go work for another year. That does depend a little bit on how busy the industry is. Sometimes people go to school back to back, sometimes people wait a little longer in between levels. It just really depends on maybe what their contracting company has on the go at the time. I did my third and fourth level back to back when I did school, just because we were so busy in between my second and third year that I
Yeah.
waited a year and 3/4 to go back to school after second year. So you finish your third level, you go back to work again for a year, you finish your fourth
Yeah.
level, and then you write your Red Seal exam. And as an apprentice, you have to, in the different trades, the hour requirements are slightly different, but through Skill Trades BC, which is the governing body for apprenticeships in British Columbia, you have to accumulate so many hours and score 70% on your Red Seal exam, which covers material from levels 1 through 4.
Yeah.
So you get to, remember everything you learned 4 years ago, which can be challenging,
Yeah.
but we definitely review in the classroom. And when you're out working in the field, your employer or your sponsor for your apprenticeship should have you working alongside a journey person or under the supervision of a journey person. And they're teaching you those hands-on skills in the field. And when you come into class, we get to teach you the less fun stuff like math and science. More fun, it
I
depends
think
on who
more
you are.
fun. Yeah, more
um
fun.
but yeah, depending on where you are, you get a really well-rounded apprenticeship. I was really fortunate in my experience. I worked for a company that did residential work, so wood frame homes. We also did commercial work like large concrete buildings, hotels,
Cool.
apartments, swimming pools, and then I did
Oh.
service work as well. So I got to go into people's houses and put in a new toilet for them or fix a leaky tap. So I had a really cool, well-rounded experience. Some apprentices just do commercial work, some apprentices just do residential, and some apprentices just do service work. So it really depends on who you're working for and what your interests are and kind of where you're at. But yeah, and then like something I really want to speak to, because this is, yeah, I don't know, when you get your red seal, I know for me at least, when I got that red seal, I think you personally feel like there's this expectation that you should know everything, but you've honestly just passed an exam. You don't have as much experience as that person who's been in the field for 20
Yeah.
years who can snap their fingers and make it look like the mechanical room goes in like magic. That comes with time and experience and the type of jobs that you're on. And I think that, sometimes we put a little bit of undue pressure on ourselves that we have to magically rise to the standards of somebody who's been in the industry 20 years longer than us. When you're a new journey person, yeah, you're capable of doing a heck of a lot more than a first year apprentice, but you're still learning too. And I think keeping that in context is really important. Yeah, you still got plenty of room to grow.
I love that this has been a theme, is like a continual learner. It's been like your entire life you can always
Lifelong
learn.
learning.
Yeah, yeah. But it's true though. Like it is, I think it like speaks to the truth of knowledge and just like becoming a master. And it's not something that I think an exam and taking school and taking your apprenticeship and the way that your guys' apprenticeship and authentication and kind of like registration of your license with Red Seal and Journey Person, the way that it does, it's half school, half experience. So I think it is this beautiful kind of well-rounded education. But I think you're right. Like just because you have a Red Seal doesn't mean all of a sudden that you know everything or don't have room to grow.
Mhm.
How did you grow past your Red Seal? Like, what did that look like for you? Did you take extra classes? Did you try to find more jobs and different jobs to do? Or were you more just a little bit of anxiety of being like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to know everything and I feel like I'm not there yet? Like, what did that look like for you post Red Seal?
I took a lot of free courses that were offered by suppliers
Mm,
and different manufacturers of products to upskill and learn more things. Our local union also offers training and courses for you to
amazing.
continue to advance your skills. So we offer things like digital multimeter courses and training, or gas service courses and training, or rigging, or medical gas installation. So we offer a really broad spectrum of kind of upgrade courses
Mm,
for our journey people and for our apprentices, so that they can learn more specific skills that maybe we only spend a short period of time on within your technical training,
mhm.
but we give a more lengthy ability to learn and master those concepts. So having access to courses and training like that is really invaluable, and it both helps you upskill and become more confident in what you do know,
Mhm.
because sometimes you don't realize how much you actually do remember and
Yeah.
retain until you're like, oh, I remember this. Okay, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. I guess it does both work both ways of being like, okay, well, maybe the world seems scary and big, and I'm supposed to have this fancy ticket and know everything. But then also, yeah, you do have a fancy ticket for a reason. You probably actually do remember a lot more.
Hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for going through kind of training, because I know that that's something that you're very passionate about, and it's something also topical with your job and also with the union. And I love that vibe, that bring back to the union and all of the courses that are offered there. I know something that you're also really passionate about is increasing the representation of women in trades. And I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that, because you're being part of this really cool pilot program at Camosun, which is focusing on the retention of women in red seal trades. I was wondering if you could speak to this program, how it works, and then the current barriers which are leading to retention loss. Like, why are we having retention loss after Red Seal? Because that's like a considerate amount of work, time, education. Why at that point are a lot of people leaving the trades?
Yeah, sure. So there's multiple topics to cover here. So
Take
let
your
me
time with
start
it.
a little
Yeah.
bit with,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's fair. Well, let me start a little bit with kind of my, yeah, passion about supporting women in
Hmm.
trades. Obviously, we're currently sitting somewhere in and around 5% women in trades in Canada, which is an abysmally low number.
Hmm.
That includes apprentices and red seals. We're slowly seeing those numbers creep up, but at a very glacial pace. And at Camosun College, the job I was first hired to do was working within our Women in Trade Sampler program, which gives women the opportunity to try a trade over 12 weeks and pick a trade that might resonate with them and get into a foundation program with those trades, or maybe based on the opportunity they have a work experience trying that trade out, they get hired by a company and they come back to school as an apprentice. And kind of watching people succeed and leave that program
Hmm.
and seeing how inspiring that was kind of was a bit of a catalyst for me to step up and do more. Like, yeah, sure, I'm a woman in the trades
Hmm.
and I'm teaching this program and it's great to have a role model, but what else could I do to, help recruitment and help retention? So I took on position as co-chair of what was our women's committee at Local 324 and is now our diversity committee. And we actually voted on changing to a diversity committee to include non-binary members and members from the 2S LGBTQ community and other people from underrepresented groups, because we all face similar
Hmm.
challenges and seeing ourselves represented in the skilled trades. So I started building a bit of community within our own union local in that regard, and kind of, giving a support system and some connection for our members, and just, yeah, being a touch point for the women in trades in our department, whether they're in my class or they're in steam fitting or they're
Hmm.
in sprinkler fitting. I've kind of been a person that
Yeah.
they can chat with and bounce their ideas off of and lend a bit of support, or just an ear. They have something they want to ask a question about or talk about, and they don't feel comfortable maybe asking someone else, or they want
Hmm.
to bounce an idea off me. And that's, yeah, I do what I can, right? In terms of the pilot program we have at Camosun College, we worked on a project in cooperation with BCIT and Okanagan College at creating some curricular enhancements to go into our foundation training programs in pipe trades at Camosun, electrical at BCIT, and carpentry at Okanagan College, to look at ways we could better support women to be successful in their path towards the Red Seal. And one of the big things that we came across when we were doing research is that there needs is to kind of be a well-rounded education for everyone on what equity, diversity, and inclusion looks
Mm-hmm.
like. So we
Yeah.
created a suite of enhancements that kind of address the ideas of equity, diversity, and inclusion, while also addressing some other key skills like communication skills
Mm-hmm.
and resiliency and interview skills, which weren't necessarily part of the foundation's programs at some of the other institutions before, and just providing kind of a baseline of what the expectations in the workplace are, and how we can be inclusive of everyone, and what equity looks like, and
Mm-hmm.
what behavior is appropriate on a job site and what
Yeah.
isn't. And we took little nuggets. We worked with some external organizations like the BC Center for Women in the Trades, and we looked at things like bystander intervention and what the importance of educating students on bystander intervention is, and how you can intervene in a
Mm-hmm.
situation with people. So just kind of giving the framework, peeling off a little bit of that layer,
Yeah.
where we can start to, create a workplace that the culture is going to shift in,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to it being kind of that toxic environment that it has been for the last several decades, where
Yeah.
it's okay to treat people really poorly, and it's okay to, be sexist or
Mm-hmm.
racist or homophobic, and
Homophobic.
that all
Yeah.
gets a pass in the workplace. So kind of giving people a little bit of a framework and making them put themselves in other people's shoes,
Mm.
to understand why that kind of behavior isn't okay. So yeah, that's that's the pilot program. And, I spoke to it, the toxic culture in the workplace. It gets exhausting, especially if that culture doesn't shift. I've seen somewhat of a culture shift from when I first started in the trade. We're definitely seeing more representation of women than when I was in the trade, and that certainly helps. And we're seeing a much younger demographic also come into the skilled trades, and
Mm-hmm.
there's different attitudes with every generation of people
Yeah.
and different mindsets, and I think that helps somewhat as well. But there's still a long ways to go in terms of that toxic culture in the workplace, and addressing that both from the top, which is management levels and unions,
Mm-hmm.
and from the bottom, which is educational institutions, where we're starting these apprentices out and setting them up for success and to be inclusive in the sector. Because whether people like it or not, we're facing a labor shortage.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we're facing a labor shortage in the skilled trades isn't because there isn't a pool of labor available. It's because
Culture.
for years we've excluded a
Mm-hmm.
demographic from that pool of labor, whether it be women or people from other underrepresented groups. Traditionally, they didn't want to enter the trades
Mm-hmm.
because things weren't welcoming for them.
Yeah.
There wasn't those opportunities for them. So ensuring that we have that workforce so we can continue to be productive and build things means that we have to include everyone who's qualified to do the job,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're, male, female, or from another underrepresented group. One of the other things, obviously, that is a barrier, especially for women that have already gotten their Red Seal, would be a lack of opportunities for advancement. So I myself, very fortunate, obviously. I'm an instructor. I feel like that's an advancement, but those positions are limited. We're starting to see growth in women in management and ownership positions, within unions, within businesses. However, again, that's one of those things that's moved at a glacial
Glacial.
pace, and
Yeah.
it's more of an
Yeah.
anomaly
Yeah.
still than it is of, us seeing an equitable split there. So I think it's important that, women have those same opportunities to advance in their careers. And I think in a lot of scenarios, they're maybe not seeing those opportunities come along as easily as maybe their male counterparts are. So I think that's one of the reasons we see them leaving the skilled trades.
Mm.
And then being isolated,
Yeah.
being the only woman on a job site, having a lack of community or true camaraderie on the job site or within your workplace, can be really challenging. It
Yeah.
can feel lonely, it can feel isolating, and if if it's you all the time
Against
by
the world.
yourself,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's not conducive to great mental health, nor
No.
wanting to stay in a career or a job. And I mean, I see that changing. Like we have lots of job sites right now in our local where there's a couple women working
Mm-hmm.
together or three women working together in just the plumbing company that they're working for, and that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got electricians who are women on the site and carpenters who are women on the site, and we're starting to see more
Mhm.
sites that have more than one woman on it. But even just having local community, and we're really fortunate here on Vancouver Island to have a really great women in trades community. Some members of the skilled trades here started kind of a grassroots movement of getting
Mhm.
people together, and it's been absolutely incredible just providing that community and support and friendship and sounding board. And yeah, it's something I'm very grateful for.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea, for that answer because that answer was so well spoken and so well thought out. And it was a big question. I think I asked you 10 questions in one. I think it was a very well-rounded 10 questions. So thank you for going into it. And you brought up so many things. One that I agree with, one of them being the importance of community and the problem with isolation within these industries and within male populated spaces. And I have been kind of an advocate for a long time of virtual community because I feel like that's maybe something that's the most accessible to women in trades and women in STEM and gender diverse people. I think that that's something that's easily accessible because sometimes it's the only thing that it's really, really hard to have community at your workplace. But I love that you have a couple stories that it's starting to change and you're starting to have these huge women's groups and grassroots movements on the island. I think that that's really powerful. I do think that it is changing. I agree with the glacial pace. I wish it would pick up the pace and get from 5 because I think it's been at 5 for 25 years. It has been a long-term standing culture problem. And I think it's really similar to science has had the same thing and we have the phenomenon of the leaky pipe or the leaky pipeway. And that basically is just that you have almost 50-50 representation at school, but then as soon as you leave school and you go into industry, you have women dropping out of science fields at an alarming rate. And I feel like it's very similar to trades just because it's based on problems of culture and problems of maybe the environment isn't actually designed for us or wasn't designed for us. And you have a lack of diversity within culture because I think a lot of people feel like it wasn't really designed for them. I love that pilot program that you guys are starting at the very, very bottom. And I think what's very powerful about the pilot program at Camosun, one, I love that it's real stories and real people experience and kind of bringing it down to not something imaginary or something that's theoretical, something that's actually happening with real world examples. But I also love that you're talking about kind of upskilling and talking about these conversations to everybody. It's not just women in trades, it's also male apprentices, and to try to change culture locally at organizations and at the very, very bottom. And I think that that is a very, very powerful thing and has a huge impact. From the pilot program, is there anything that gives you a lot of hope? Is there anything that, like, makes you feel really, like, happy that you're like, "Okay, yes, I think we are gonna move from that glacial space"? Is there anything right now in the community that you're like, "Okay, I think that this is working"? Or is there still kind of areas where you think that we should focus on that still needs a little bit of love and attention in terms of culture?
I mean, I think for anything, there's always room for improvement, and
Mhm,
I think there's more resources that could get added and more education that could be done. But something that's come out of this that's been really cool to see is just seeing the creation or the fostering of allyship between both female students, but also male and female students,
mhm,
and male students, having them stand up for one another, having them support one another. Yeah, just having them kind of have each other's backs. I think that, and this isn't in every single case, obviously, but like seeing that growth of someone saying, hey, no, that's not okay. Like,
mhm.
we can't say something like that to somebody because it's not acceptable. Giving people a voice to be an ally, I think,
Mhm.
has been something really promising that's come out of this. And I guess I hope that continues. I'm optimistic, I
Yeah.
suppose, that that continues.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but it's nice to see that bit of a shift and
Mhm.
that little bit of a change, I think. So, yeah, I think that gives me hope.
Totally. No, I could see that giving you a pep to be like, okay, yep, like it's still slow. It's still like a huge problem that honestly, I think every
Mhm.
single person within the industry or within kind of their own sector need to start working on it. Like, I think it's a problem that not one person can solve. So it's almost too
Mhm.
big for one organization or one people or one pilot program, but it must give you some hope and some kind of backing to be like, okay, yes, it's working. And to see those allyships being built and being fostered, I think that's really incredible. Andrea, you voiced something in an interview that I read that I honestly, I cracked up when I first read it because I was like, this is exactly how I feel. And I was like, I can't wait until the future that I don't have a job. Like, I can't wait that Smoko doesn't have to exist to a certain effect. And what you voiced is that you're looking forward to a future where women in trades is no longer a thing and tradeswomen are just tradespeople. And I resonated with that so much because I was like, that's why we have Smoko is to increase representation of women in trades and STEM. But I can't wait until we don't have to do that and until that doesn't have to be the
Mhm.
conversation. And we might have already kind of talked a little bit about this in terms of problems with culture, but if there's anything that we missed of like, what do you think we need to do to make that future reality? Like, I I know we've talked a little bit about how culture was extremely toxic for a long time, I think, in organizations around the country. I think, unfortunately, it probably is still really toxic, but how it is getting a little bit better. But in terms of overall culture of trades, where do you think that we need to do to make that future a reality?
Yeah, I love the idea that we uh, could move forward, and
Yeah.
you know, I I'm sure it'll upset some people that would love to continue to be on or employed in those fields, but I think it'll be great when we don't have to drastically up the numbers of women entering the trades by recruitment. I think it would just be wonderful if we had some equity in the skilled trade sector. Those people that want to work in the sector and go to school and are qualified to do so could just get a job in the
Mm,
sector and advance into positions of leadership when they're qualified to do so. And I think for me, one of the things that, is across the board really, really important is that people in positions of power in these industries continue to advocate for that culture change. I think that we can advocate as educational institutions, and apprentices can advocate for change, and people that are getting into these industries from these underrepresented groups can want that change and do what they can to make that change happen. But the onus shouldn't be
no.
on them to
Mhm,
make that change occur. The onus should be on the people that do have the power in these situations to say, hey, like, this is what's happening.
mhm.
We need to shift our culture. Guess what, folks? Everybody wants to go to work and be respected at their job. It's not just a women thing, it's
It's
across the
everybody.
board. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be respected at work. Nobody wants to be yelled at work.
Mm,
Nobody wants to be called a name at work.
mm-mm,
Nobody wants to suffer from such bad psychological trauma by being treated awfully every day that they're using a power tool and they accidentally cut off a finger. Nobody deserves to be treated that way.
mhm.
Everyone deserves to be treated with respect on the job, no matter where you're working. And we all make mistakes. There's constructive ways to correct mistakes. So for me, it's really a top down approach as well. I
Mm,
mean, we're doing the best that we can from the bottom up. People are advocating for themselves as best as they can. But if we don't have buy in from those people in positions of power saying, hey,
mhm.
we support this movement as well.
Yeah.
We see the importance of having an inclusive and diverse workforce. It brings a lot to the table. We have a diverse pool of ideas, a diverse pool of talent and skills. By introducing diversity into the workplace, it makes good business sense. I think that you actually get more buy-in when those people in positions of power are both talking the talk, which we know a lot of these people do, but also walking the
Walking the
walk in
walk.
daily life. And
Yeah.
I know we see a lot of people in positions of power go, yes, I'm all for women in trades, I
Mhm,
support women in trades, but then when push comes to shove, they're not actually backing it up.
mhm,
So I suppose I want them to actually walk the walk too.
mhm. No, I think that is a fantastic answer. Thank you very much, Andrea, for that because I think, yeah, you can't do anything unless you have top buy-in. And I love the talk because I think that does happen. But I think the walk is the big one that could be missing right now. And definitely when like you have so much power within these spaces from organizations, from unions, from big structural or like from government, from yes, institutions and education, but like you have bigger government structures and bigger people from the top that have so much power within these spaces and the opportunity to have so much impact. I think you're right that that's kind of the best way to change culture. For the future of kind of trades and the future of plumbing and pipes, tradespeople, what's on your radar currently? Like, what do you think should be the focus for training or experience for kind of the next generation of people in plumbing and pipe trades? Like, what sector, if there is one, do you think is going to be big? Do you have anything kind of on your radar that we're now thinking and speaking really future focused?
I mean, we're definitely, as a nation and I mean, as an industry, seeing a huge push towards renewable resources.
Mm,
I actually have a really cool opportunity to work with a guy who had his own solar business for years. He's one of the instructors at the college.
cool.
And I've just learned so much from him about the really neat ways that we can effectively harness energy that's a renewable resource that doesn't have a negative impact on our environment, but is also in some ways, after government grants and things, fairly cost effective for us to be reclaiming energy. So I think that there is a bit of a trend and we're seeing a bit of more of an uptake in renewables, specifically because our building codes are shifting and changing for us
Mm,
to be better at energy savings. So I think that we're going to see probably more of a shift towards more renewable and better ways to conserve things like water and conserve energy and harness natural elements for
mhm,
energy. And I honestly think that's really cool. There is so much technology out there that we don't even know about, and there's more developing every day. It's really kind of neat to watch how rapidly the industry is changing on a day-to-day basis. And things have changed so drastically even since I went to school
mm.
17 years ago. Like when I first started my apprenticeship, it's wild to watch that
Yeah.
transition and the evolution of the trade and the things that we can do now that we probably didn't even think about doing 17 years ago. So just watching that evolution from that renewable perspective and energy savings perspective is really really neat.
Oh, that's very cool. I could see that. I think that that's the kind of the answer of like any future focused, I think, is kind of sustainability, renewables, and technology. I feel like those three big umbrellas, those are the ones to watch and kind of will transform every single sector and probably every single education or occupation. So that's very cool that you can already kind of see that difference of 17 years from when you started versus now to be like, okay, well, the way that we look at a problem is completely different, or the way that we go to install something is completely different because all of a
Mhm.
sudden we have this new lens of renewability and sustainability. That is very, very cool that that's kind of the next generation of tradespeople within this trade will be really focused on it. Andrea, thank you very much for this interview because I think you've been absolutely fantastic in your answers have been so poignant and so well thought and just very, very well spoken. And I know we're almost at time, but I just want to do one last one. And throughout your experience, throughout your career, you've done so much. Has there been anything that you've learned that has really, really surprised you throughout your entire journey as both Red Seal, instructor, everything?
So I think for me, the thing that surprised me the most is probably been more of a personal lesson than
Mm,
like a tidbit of information that I gained through education or through experience on the tools. And that's the importance of community, whether it be your
mhm,
community of peers at work, both male and female, or your support system of women and non-binary folks in the trades, where you're, talking about issues they may run into on the job site. Community is a place where you can learn. Community is a space where you can feel safe. And community is really great in supporting you through maybe difficult times in your career when you might not feel like you want to keep pushing through.
mhm,
So I think having community helps you celebrate your successes. It helps you get through tough times. And I think there's an extremely important value in having that support system. And for a number of years for me, like I was the only woman working at the company I worked at. And I had a wonderful community of peers and mentors, but they were all male
mhm,
and they were fantastic.
mm,
They taught me so many things, and I have nothing but admiration and appreciation for the experience I had with them. But honestly, having that second community of peers who were women and non binary folks that are in the skilled trades has been a real gift. And I encourage folks that to find their community because that support system is invaluable. And if that's the one lesson I've taken away, it's something that I want to continue to help foster and build within my local and both at the college because I see the value and I see the importance
mhm.
and I know how much of a difference that can make.
No, I love that answer. And I love that that Honestly, that has been a theme. I think there's been a couple themes of our interview. I think one theme is the lifelong learner and always that every single thing is a learning opportunity and just also a positivity surrounding learning and surrounding just the ability to kind of, if you don't know it, that's okay. Like you can figure it out. Like you don't have to be this perfect kind of guru
Hmm.
at all times or understanding everything completely. I think that's been a theme. I think the second theme has been representation and women in trades, but I think that that's been really tied back to community. So thank you for that answer because I think that that's been a constant throughout our discussion and it sounds like throughout your life of having people around you and having a community. I think it's so important. I think again, if you don't have that community in real life, I think you can also have that community virtually, but I also think it's a testament to you of how involved you are with your local and also with grassroots organizations and maybe other trades, maybe not just within plumbing, kind of all around you within that area. So I think that's a very beautiful answer. Thank you for that answer of bringing it back to the importance of community. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has just been a complete delight. And it was just so lovely getting to know you and learn more about Camosun, learn more about your program, about being an instructor, and just your experience as plumbing and pipe trades. So thank you. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun for me too. And for everybody out listening, thank you very much for doing so. We will see you next Wednesday with a new episode. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Smoko podcast. Bye bye for now.